All right, we are back on SportsLine. Our guest tonight, Kevin Reiser from Centennial Tennis Center. He's a pro over there. Kevin, good to have you in.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Always good to talk some tennis. You know how much I like it, obviously. What do you make of, we'll dive right in here quickly. What do you make of what you saw on Sunday in the Wimbledon men's final?
I think you saw one of the better performances from one of the best players in the world and might go down as one of the best players ever. I saw glimpses of the old Federer from 6-7 years ago when he played against Murray and thought it was going to be pretty close, but Djokovic took it to a different level, and you saw the defense, the offense, and coming up with big breaks at big times when you thought he was down and he came right back. It was pretty impressive. It
was interesting because I thought we saw a lot of the old Federer in the way he served probably better than he ever has in his career leading up to it. I thought he maybe was in better form going into the final, but Djokovic just has a way of when he gets pressured, he kind of casually shifts. It's not to like 4th or 5th gear. It's like 13th gear or something like. I mean, he just takes it to a totally new level, and we saw that in that first set tiebreak. I thought for sure. I thought Federer deserved to win the first set, right, but he certainly didn't deserve to win the tiebreak. Djokovic had the opportunity, and he took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, he has a gear like we used to see from Federer years ago that some guys and most guys can't reach, and he took it there. And in situations where you think he's down, and all of a sudden he comes up with that big break like he did in the third set after he loses that hard. He had, I believe, 7 set points in the second set tiebreaker, and you think he's down, you think Federer's got it rolling, he comes back and gets a break and takes another level, and Federer wasn't able to keep up to that level.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The thing I keep thinking about Djokovic, too, is just how good he is at so many different things. I mean, he's probably the best returner in the sport right now, don't you think? And he's got huge weapons on both sides, forehand and backhand. There's just so much pressure on you. And for Federer, Federer's advantage was that first serve where he served brilliantly throughout the tournament, only broken 1 time, but then he gets broken 4 times in the finals by Djokovic. I mean, just how good is this guy?
I mean, you saw it where if Federer was off just by a few inches, Djokovic is putting a quality ball back in play, and Federer is starting off instead of on the offense like he was doing most of the tournament and first ball winner. Now he's playing defense, and you saw how many barely pickups he got at the baseline off monster returns by Djokovic. On returns, he probably shouldn't get a racket on, and most guys, Federer's probably not used to getting those balls coming back. And all of a sudden, instead of being offense, he's on defense. And it's to start the point, it's a huge advantage to be probably the best returner in the game right now.
Disconcerting as a server, and the thing was, for tennis fans who watched the semifinals on Friday, Andy Murray is the 3rd-ranked player in the world. He's a former Wimbledon champion, a multi-time Grand Slam champion, and he couldn't touch Federer. You know, everything Federer did just blew him off the court, basically. And then 2 days later, a guy who's obviously #1 in the world, but you don't think there should be that big of a difference between those two guys. It was a totally different match. Just the pressure that Djokovic put on him because of that return, it seemed to me anyway like Federer tried to go a little bit bigger on the first serve, so he lost a little bit of placement. He didn't hit as many first serves in, which then meant he was in the second serve situation, which you never want to be in against Djokovic. It just seems like the pressure that Djokovic constantly puts in your head is something you always have to deal with, and it's hard to sometimes play at the level you want to play with that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you saw at Federer in the first set, you thought, here it comes. He's playing just like he did against Murray for about 4 games, and then I think it starts getting in your head that these balls that I'm hitting that should be winners are coming back with amazing depth, and you try to put that little bit of extra on it, and you miss. You make some mistakes, and all of a sudden he's got you.
It was a special moment because anytime those top 4 guys get together in a Grand Slam final, I think all tennis fans and I think a lot of casual sports fans tune in because they almost always deliver. But it was interesting watching some of the Twitter feedback and stuff throughout the day on Sunday. A lot of people, I heard words like epic and classic match between it. I thought the first 2 sets were epic. I thought the level from both sides in the first 2 sets were tremendous. And if they could have kept that up, I think we're talking about one of the all-time matches.
Right.
But the third and fourth set were kind of ordinary in a lot of ways. So to me, in terms of its place in history, which some people are trying to give it, to me it doesn't have one compared to some of the other great matches we've seen at the various slams between these guys because of that. The fact that it dropped off a little bit and ultimately Djokovic won in 4.
Yeah, I didn't think it was overly amazing tennis like we've seen from Djokovic and Murray and Djokovic and Wawrinka in the Australian Open finals. The first 2 sets were really, really well played and high caliber, but I felt that Federer was still trailing a little bit, and some breaks go his way, a couple lines being clipped and kind of keep him on serve. And Djokovic has, believe it was 7 set points in the second set, and probably should have won that second set. And like I was telling a lot of people, the first set was very, very good tennis, but it felt like Federer couldn't quite keep at that level that Djokovic was playing at the whole entire time. He got that second set and he took it in the tiebreak, but I felt like Djokovic was playing just a little better tennis, and I don't think it quite lived up to what people wanted it to be as those epic, 1 versus 2 kind of matchup.
He seemed to keep raising his level throughout the course of the match, and at some point it seemed like Federer just kind of ran out of gas in sets 3 and sets 4, which maybe isn't surprising for a guy who is almost 34 years of age, although he hardly ever looks like it out there on the court. I want to get back into that, but we have a phone call here. 737-7767 is the number. Philip has been waiting a bit. We appreciate that. Good evening, Philip.
All right. Here we go. I could watch baseball, football, basketball, even hockey, although I can't stand that sport. I understand what's going on at every moment of the game. So here's my question, and I have yet to get an answer to this, so I'd really like one. Please explain, because I like watching tennis. It's interesting, and I'm trying to get into it. But explain the scoring to me. What is the objective? Why are we going 15, 30, love? Is it you can only score if you're serving? Explain you've got the large rectangular lines, and then you have one that's a little bit inside. When it seems to me like if you hit it in between those two, it doesn't count. Just please help me be able to watch a tennis match and be enthralled in the situation, because I don't understand when this could be it. This is the end. This is game, set, match thing. Explain the scoring in tennis so that I can watch it and understand what's happening instead of just watching it for purely their athleticism, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, Phil, we'll take a good crack at it here, I think. Kevin's a good guy to have here in studio here. I'll start off by just saying you want to win sets in tennis. Most of the time, most tournaments, whether it's youth or even most of the professional tournaments, are best 2 out of 3.
Right.
The Grand Slams, like Wimbledon, what we saw on Sunday, it's best 3 out of 5. First guy to win 3 sets, and that's why the Grand Slams on the men's side are such just grueling challenges. Is oftentimes to win 3 out of 5. If you're out there for 5 sets, you might be out there for 5 hours. Yeah. And if you've ever tried to be on a tennis court and hit for 5 hours competitively, not even successive hours, but just 5 hours in general, I mean, that's a grind. And so that is what you're talking about, is trying to win best 2 out of 3, or in this case, 3 out of 5. Each set, it's the first guy to 6 games. Right. Got to win by 2, though. If you get to 6-all, tie breaks in most cases, except for like at Wimbledon, here's a rare case. In the 5th set, they don't let you win in a tie break, which is tie breaks, you're playing to 7. So they don't just finish it off in a handful of points. They make you win games and win by 2 again. Some other tournaments like the U.S. Open aren't like that. So there is some variations within the scoring, but that's kind of a basic rundown of what you're looking at there. And then within the games, we were actually joking about this earlier. Yeah. Love 15, 30, 40, and then you can win. Again, you got to win by 2, so you might have some deuce points in there. We're trying to figure out how it all came out. It's French? Is that what we have?
It's started by the French, and I believe over in the translation brought over to America, it kind of got mixed up. Like love is Louvre in French is egg, 0 gets brought over, it's love is your 0. It goes 15, 30, 40. I'm not sure exactly how that got brought about. That's just kind of the way they do it. It is a little bit confusing because it is some variance. There's changes from tournament to tournament, or men's or women's, or if it's a classically played like Wimbledon and they're not going to do the tie break for the 5th set, and when they are going to do the tie break, a little confusing. But I feel like if you watch enough of it, you can pick up on what's going on. And when you watch those guys playing like he was talking about, you just being able to watch the shot making,
right,
and the ability to do that at those speeds is very impressive.
The other thing you brought up about the lines is, just basic tennis. The widest lines out there are the doubles lines. Yes. And so that's the other thing is, while most of the tennis we watch on TV is the singles, because those are the biggest names, they're also playing doubles events, mixed doubles events, all that sort of stuff on these exact same courts throughout the course of the tournament, throughout the course of that day, etc. Yep. So the widest lines are the doubles lines, and you're right. The lines just inside of that are the singles lines, so a ball could be hit between those two, and it's out in singles if you're watching it. So that maybe helps some of the confusion there, and hopefully that helps you watch tennis a little bit and enjoy it a little bit more. One of my things, and I do agree that the tennis scoring can be somewhat confusing, but I'm not sure if Philip used this term necessarily, but you often hear people talk about the finish line in tennis. The finish line is approaching. The thing to me that makes tennis so unique is the finish line can be a moving target in tennis. Mm-hmm. In just the way the competition is drawn out. Basketball, a lot of sports, you have a clock going down. Baseball even, there's no clock, but for the most part, you're looking at the end of the 9th inning or the middle of the 9th if the home team wins, unless it's a tie or whatever. In tennis, you can be points away. You can be 1 point away, and if you lose a game or lose a couple games or something, all of a sudden you're in a brand new set, and the other guy's in control. And to me, that's something that's really special about tennis. And we even kind of saw that, just a glimpse from Sunday's match, is Djokovic wins the first set. He's up and in control in that second set tiebreak, and it looks like it's 2-0, and this match basically looks over at that point. All of a sudden, Federer storms back, wins the second set, and now you're level. And it, in essence, becomes a best-of-3 match at that point. To me, that's really special, is there are just some points, some moments that are kind of created differently in the sport of tennis. Yeah,
I mean, you saw it where in the 4th set, or 3rd set, it's 5-4. Djokovic serving. If he gets this game, he's 6-4. You win the set. If he loses this game, it's 5-all. This could be going to a tiebreak. It could be over right now, or it could be over in an hour. Mm-hmm. And so you're, as I was on the edge of my seat, going, is this thing going to be going a lot farther and a lot longer, or is this going to be over right now? So you can't get up and go get something to drink, go to the bathroom, because you want to see what happens at the end at each individual point. It's pretty special, that's for sure. Novak Djokovic's career is pretty special at this point. 28 years of age, got his 3rd Wimbledon title, 2nd in a row, 9th overall Grand Slam title. Everybody always wants to rank these guys, not just in the current moment of who's number 1 right now, but historically. Where do you put Novak Djokovic now, historically? I think he's 9th all-time in Grand Slams after getting number 9. I think if you looked at his resume as far as who he's beaten in which tournaments, it's becoming more impressive than some of the other guys who have won a lot of titles like that, never had to. They're playing a Rafael Nadal. He's playing a Roger Federer. Some of the guys are on the list of the top Grand Slam winners of all time, and you're having to go through those guys. That Big Four has won up teen Grand Slams, and you're not able to get these first-time guys that have never been to a Grand Slam final and use your experience to beat them. All of these guys have done it. You're playing against Roger Federer, who's done it at Wimbledon 7 times, and you got to beat him, which I think is extremely impressive. Where does Federer stand? Obviously, he's still at the top of the list of Grand Slam titles with 17 and so many other superlatives about his career. Can he win another one of these? He seems to keep knocking on the door, but he's not actually winning any at the moment. Right. I mean, I think you're starting to see where his age is going to be tough in 2-week tournaments. Some of the smaller tournaments where they're 1 week, and you might be able to go all the way through, but you're starting to see especially on a clay court or a slow hard court, Australian Open, or maybe even a fast hard court, the grinding it takes. Like you said, 3 out of 5 sets. You're out there for 4 hours. maybe one day off. It's going to be, I think it's going to be tough. I think Wimbledon is a time he has a chance for it. You've seen him have some pretty good, getting to the finals, putting on a good show, but I think it's going to be tough for him to do it in any other Grand Slams, having to do for 2 weeks of tennis.
I thought he had a shot to beat even Djokovic the way he was playing at Wimbledon. But after watching that on Sunday, it sort of feels right now like he's going to need some help. He can beat everybody else out there, it seems like, including probably Nadal at this point, who's been his nemesis throughout his career. I don't know on any surface he can beat Djokovic right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's so much fun to watch tennis right now, because you have these 4 guys at the top that even if Djokovic gets knocked out, you're going to have to go through a Nadal who's been struggling, but you could never count him out. You might have to go through Andy Murray, who goes up and down, but number 4 or 3 player in the world. You know, he's won some Grand Slams, he's got a gold medal, and even some of the Wawrinka we've seen who can turn it on. I think the road is very difficult right now in men's tennis, whereas in the past you only maybe had a couple Grand Slam winners that were playing in these tournaments, and now you got 5 or 6.
Kevin Reiser from Centennial Tennis Center is with us on the program tonight. Kevin, where do you fall in the debate on Federer right now? I feel like a lot of people have said the fact that he hasn't been able to continue the unprecedented dominance that he had sort of hurts his legacy. The fact that he lost so many matches to Nadal, the fact now that Djokovic is clearly the #1 player in the world. Then there's also some people who point to the fact that he's the older one of this generation, and at 34 years, it will be in a couple weeks, 34 years of age, he's still going strong and winning tournaments and #2 in the world and getting to finals. While a guy like Nadal, 29, people are starting to wonder if maybe he's breaking down and near the end. Where do you fall? Is the fact that he's still playing hurting the overall legacy, that he's not necessarily winning anymore, or is it helping that he's still out there and still one of the greatest players in the world?
Yeah, it goes back and forth. I mean, you have to put him up there as the greatest of all time with how many Grand Slams he's won. But when you're starting to see him lose to these other guys, these other quality players at the end of their career, where you had the Agassiz and the Samprases being able to win in their, mid-30s or 33, 34, but it's still amazingly impressive that he hasn't been hurt. He's #2 in the world, and anytime you see his name on the draw, you don't just think, oh, Djokovic has got this. You go, you never know. He's the greatest tennis player of all time. But it is hurting a little bit when you start looking at these win-loss records, especially since these guys keep winning Grand Slams and they're going to get closer to him. And they go, well, both these guys have 17 Grand Slam titles. Nadal is 13-7 or what have you against him. It's hard to look at those numbers and argue against it.
It is. The numbers game is amazing when you look at head-to-heads. It's also amazing when you look at Federer, weeks at #1, consecutive semifinals, consecutive quarterfinals, finals. Not just has he won a bunch, he's finished second a bunch more than other people have. So the numbers are amazing on both sides. And ultimately, Kevin, at the end of all of this, when they're all done playing, aren't we going to look back on this era, at least with the big 3 of the big 4, and say that Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, in some order, they're going to be 3 of the top 5 or 6, maybe 3 of the top 3 all time when it's all over, right?
It's a very special time to be watching tennis, to be able to look at these greats at the end of it. And like you said, they're going to be 3 of the most Grand Slam winning players, and they're all playing against each other in all these tournaments. You see them in Davis Cup, you see them at some of the smaller tournaments, and just be able to watch greatness like this all the time. I mean, that's, you don't get to see that very often.
It's been a fun era for tennis fans, waking up early, middle of the night in Australia for some of these matches, early mornings in Paris and Wimbledon, and now we get set for the hardcourt season and the U.S. Open. Amazingly, Djokovic, probably his best surface is the hardcourt. He's only 1-4 in finals at the U.S. Open. Probably this is the year where he's the prohibitive favorite going to New York.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, the struggles, maybe because it's a little bit of a faster court and you can get a guy with a big serve and big ground strokes that can maybe take away a little bit of the defense he can play, where you see like a Cilic or a Nishikori, guys who can hit a winner from just about anywhere on the court, and it's a little bit faster than Australia. You might see one of those guys get hot, but I would think he was going to be the prohibitive favorite to win the U.S. Open after all the stuff he's done.
You would certainly think so. It's been an amazing year so far. He's 21-1 in Grand Slam so far this year. Of course, winning the Australian, losing in the finals at the French, and now winning a third Wimbledon title. Kevin Reiser is our guest tonight. We're going to take a break. I want to come back and get your thoughts on Serena going for it's not even the Serena Slam anymore. It's just the straight Grand Slam during the course of the calendar year. We're also going to talk about what's going on at Centennial Tennis Center as well. Stay tuned, take a break, and come back with more SportsLine after this.